Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just like cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right, welcome everybody. It's Friday. It's the weekend. So glad to have you here. Toker Talk Radio. Uh-oh, start your engines. We're getting ready for the Brickyard. Hey, try pumping it. There you go. There he goes. I was just checking up on the chat on my little billboard rant here. I'll answer a few of these points. There's some good points here. I love our live chat room. You can find it at Ustream, and you can also find it just by going to 420radio.org. Click the big blue button at the top that says Connect to 420 Radio, and you'll find our live chat link. Get involved with this. This is our best way of communicating to a lot of folks out there. And I want to say hi to a lot of the regulars. Grey Wolf's out there, Lively Libra, Stereotype, Bong Hitter, Jam Band fan Lindsay still in the room. Glad to see you. Randy Quast up there in Minnesota. We'll see you tomorrow. Tie Stick, Trickster. Glad to have you out there. All of you out there. But I like this point that was made up here earlier. You got to scroll back up the chat room. NASCAR seems, this is Runaround 666 says, NASCAR seems like such a natural fit for cannabis. I mean, you're staring at guys driving in circles for hours waiting for a crash. Yeah, I suppose, could help watching that. I'll have to get Cousin Kenny in. Maybe we can get Cousin Kenny on Herb Thrasher show tonight to talk about this, as Cousin Kenny's our NASCAR expert. So we'll find out here. Rio says he used to work in the infield in NASCAR races. That's pretty cool. And what else we got? A lecture on, Stereotypes saying his dad mentioned some lecture about obesity. The discussion went to an anti-cannabinoid for blocking certain receptors. This was we've talked about this with Dr. Mitch. That was the Rimnabant or Rimnomnabant, something like that. It was basically an antagonist, right? When we talk about this, sometimes we get into this, neuropsychological kind of talk. We should define the terms. An agonist sounds like it's something that's bad, right? Agony, right? No, an agonist is something that trips a receptor, right? You got these receptors in your body, various different types of receptors, and endocannabinoid receptors are one of them, okay? And so you got this little receptor in your brain, and well, actually it's all over your organs, all over your body. You have these endocannabinoid receptors, and they are tripped by anandamide and other endocannabinoids that basically work with that receptor. It's like flicking the light switch on, right? Well, to agonize a receptor is to activate it, to make it flip on, right? So when we talk about a cannabinoid receptor agonist, we're talking about things like THC and CBD, things that are exocannabinoids, that is from outside of our bodies, that then trip a receptor, that then cause it to work. Well, an antagonist is the opposite of that. An antagonist is something that blocks a receptor from working. And this was something that French researchers tried, was it 2 or 3 years ago, was this idea that, well, if the THC and the cannabinoids trip this receptor and give you the munchies, If we blocked that receptor, you wouldn't have the munchies and you might lose weight. So they tried this. They came up with an antagonist, or some Rimnabant, or whatever the hell the name was. And they tried it and they patented it and they made a medication out of it. People tried it and sure enough, they didn't have much as far as the munchies go, but they had severe depression and suicidal tendencies. It seems that blocking the endocannabinoid system is not that good an idea. Seems like it's kind of important in our bodies and our mental health and our well-being. So, yeah, that was the story of that whole anti-cannabinoids. I thought that was pretty interesting. The other point being made here when we were talking about the NASCAR thing was, who would be offended by this? And Runaround says the ones who are offended will have a beer and then laugh about it. And that's true. And maybe I'm overestimating how offended anyone might be by this. I'm not necessarily talking about, though, the average beer drinker who will be offended by it. I'm thinking of your average beer executive that might be offended by it. These people that control a lot of money and a lot of political pressure. Let's not, poke the bear. You know what I'm saying? And while it might be true, right? All this alcohol, all the stuff we talk about with alcohol causing violence and drunk driving crashes and cirrhosis and, fights and all that. Sure, it's true. No need for us to point that out to the beer executives, though. And no need for the beer executives to start to think that our agenda is an anti-alcohol agenda. No need for us to be accumulating a big enemy with a big media presence and lots of commercials and lots of very, very loyal customers. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make on that. And Rio adds that an extremely large portion of NASCAR viewers love pot. I don't know what the stats are. I would love some stats on this. Let's find out, wouldn't it be great to commission a poll to find out, NFL fans, NBA fans, Major League Baseball, hockey, NASCAR, golf, whatever. Make a list of sports, and let's find out which sport has the most pot smokers that enjoy it. You know what I think it would actually be? Westminster Dog Show. Be right back. Stick around.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Cast your rise up to the skies. What is it to live and die?
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa. Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215. Or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
Yeah! Junior gonna be real. Pepper, pepper, pepper. How would them feel like? Come on!
Straight up, we set the fire, we blaze them and do it properly. Sonically, all we need is the honesty and the Cali. We roll up the Sensi when you on the brink of insanity. Hit it and pass it, and we blazing all of humanity.
Blaze it up,
and we never care about what you say to us.
Blaze it up,
everywhere we go, we taking the spray with us.
Blaze it up,
all the mommies in the club wanna blaze with us.
Blaze it up,
all you fucking haters remain hating us. We grow the crystal freely, from dirt up to the ceiling. I know you want the feeling, you need some herbal healing. We flip it in the valley, out here in Southern Cali. I know you fuckers envy, be real and Mr. Marley.
Analog or digital, spiritual or physically, metaphor or literally, in the street or lyrically. Analog or digitally, spiritual or physically, metaphor or literally. Call it the cavalry. Some little wanna come walking on me wallaby, wanna follow me, but they prove to be too weak and wobbly. Flashy lyrics could I leave them in a tragedy. Truth and factually, it actually come to us naturally. Blaze it up, anytime, any place, no apology. Blaze it up, I make some wine and me become reality. Blaze it up, squeeze up to out of the newest technology. Blaze it up, pop off and put it back comfy and casually. Gang the originally, Mr. B reality. I'm taking trips to Cali, more now than typically. Just to specifically get a good split for Cali. I keep it, you keep it, we keep it blazing.
Oh yeah, that's Be Real featuring Damian Marley with Fire. Welcome back to Toker Talk Radio. Catching up with the chat room out there. Thank you guys for being a part of the show. We appreciate it. So, yeah, people were commenting on my blinky green screen. I'm working on it. There's still some lighting issues I have to fix, so I haven't got the light bars installed yet. I'm going to save that for the weekend. And once that gets installed, I'm hoping that'll give us a more consistent green screen effect. I've got it stapled to the wall behind me now. It's a lot smoother and it works a lot better, so hopefully that'll help too. All right, let me get to more of this NASCAR talk. Runaround was talking about how a group tried to sponsor a NASCAR. That was Cannabis Planet TV was trying to sponsor a NASCAR, and it got turned away because of the pot leaf on their hood. But, you know, and it's going to be a long time, I think, before we see a NASCAR or major sporting event with any sort of pro-cannabis sponsors. I don't see them taking, you know, Harborside Health Center ad money anytime soon. It's going to have to be a whole lot more legal before that happens, I think. Let's see what else we got. You know, the other thing too, Runaround brings up, you know, in this, with the alcohol industry in this ad, you know, when all the alcohol companies sponsor nonsense like Dare, it's time to offend them. Yeah. I mean, the alcohol industry has been awful as far as sponsoring Dare, Partnership for a Drug-Free America, you know, that kind of nonsense, certainly. So why make them angrier? Why make them do more stuff, right? They're big. They're huge in this country. It's the most popular drug. I think as the third most popular drug, we don't need to be offending the first most popular drug. And I just think in general, there's, what's the right term? I don't want to say tacky, but there's something just that feels unethical to me about demonizing other drugs to support your drug. I've seen us do it in the cannabis community a lot with meth. We do that with meth a lot. Oh, the tweakers on the meth. And, you know, to some extent, coke or heroin or whatever. And I think that's a bad idea. I think it's a mistake. It reminds me of the Niemöller poem, you know, no one was left to speak up for me. And I don't think that we should demonize anybody for their choice of any recreational enjoyment, for any drug they might choose to use. Now, we can be clear about the devastation of these other drugs. We can be clear that heroin's highly addictive. We can be clear that cocaine will ruin your bank account. We can be clear that methamphetamine is not good for you in any sort of way. But we needn't demonize the users of those drugs. You know, for me, the problem with the ad was the imagery. And I have to admit that when I first saw it, I just watched it visually without any narration. And by the way, I would recommend you do that too. When you're trying to cast a critical eye toward the media and, you know, television, of course, and internet video and all that, what people take away from these ads is mostly visual. Very few will take away what's in the reading and the narration of it, right? The most will be taken from the visual, what they see. Second most will be taken from words on screen. Third most will be taken from what they hear in the narration. Now, and not just, you know, not just because that's the way people think and that's the way people's brains work. It's also because of the environments in which they will see this ad. When they're watching at the NASCAR, they're not going to hear the narrator. They're just going to see it out there. People that might catch this on an evening news when it's being reported on, if they're seeing a TV that's at a bar or an airport, it's not going to have the audio turned up. They're just going to see the video. So when the opening shot, well, let's see. I'll just put these shots up here. I've actually got them screen capped here for us. The opening shot, it talks about how it's a new beer. That they're proposing that marijuana is this new beer, a new way of celebrating, and it shows a picture. There you go. That's very typical of how people think of themselves as beer drinkers, right? This is a typical beer ad shot. Four good-looking, clean-cut people in a nice, well-lit bar, all toasting each other with a fine amber brew, right? That's the way most people imagine themselves if they're beer drinkers. Now, on top of that, we're going to follow that up with more imagery, and the next imagery we show is the beer drinker. There you are, beer drinker. That's you. That's you with your beer belly and your beer hanging out, just kind of halfway holding up the mug. That's what they're going to see at the NASCAR. That's what they're going to see at the rally there or at the race there, is themselves being portrayed as with bad tattoo too, badly tattooed, obese rednecks that love beer. And then the next image they see of what it's like to be one of them is an image of a woman who's staring at three empty, well, is that empty? I can't tell. 3 empty glasses, 2 half empty glasses, head in her hands. Oh no, I drink alcohol. I'm an alcoholic. This is the terrible fate that has awaited me for my choice of drug. And then the final picture that we get is the one that's trying to show how marijuana is less likely to lead to violence, that depicts the beer drinker here as the guy with beer in his hand, shaking his fist, drunk, wearing one of those A shirts, those what typically called the wife beater t-shirt. And then in the foreground, his poor, cowering spouse, head in her hands, crying, face down toward the table. This is what you're like, beer drinkers. And that's what I fear in this campaign, is that the message of marijuana being a good thing will be overshadowed by the message of beer being a bad thing. And is that a risk that we really need to take? Is that something that's really a good idea, considering that we're just now cresting 50% in a lot of public opinion polls? We're just now over 50% of people who understand that marijuana is safer than alcohol. Do we need to risk alienating beer drinkers, and especially the corporate interests behind beer, who might be motivated to fund some new anti-marijuana legalization campaign, maybe throw a few tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars Kevin Sabet's way at Project Sam so they can put out nationwide commercials showing how bad marijuana smokers are, showing the lazy guy on the couch, showing the tie-dyed, dreadlocked, smelly-looking hippie. Smelly-looking? Never mind, I'm rolling. Do we really need to take that risk that we're going to poke the bear? Let's not do that. Let's show people enjoying themselves responsibly with alcohol. And here's how I'd do the same commercial. I'd show people the typical beer commercial, people celebrating, having a good beer. And then I'd show another group of people who are just smoking a joint, having fun with their crowd. And have these two in a split screen side by side. And then toward the last 10 seconds of the commercial, the right side of the screen with the pot smokers has cops bursting in and busting them and pointing weapons in their face and flashbang grenades and shooting their dogs. Meanwhile, the beer side is still sitting over there on the left side of the screen partying. And then ask at the end of the commercial, why do we treat these two groups differently? Show how we're like beer drinkers, not better than beer drinkers. Show that we are just responsible people who have jobs and we like to unwind at the end of the day with something different. We know it's something better. We know it's something healthier, but we don't need to poke that in their face like a non-smoker who pokes at a smoker and saying, tobacco is bad for you. Doesn't make a whole lot of friends. Oh, hey, speaking of making friends, it's 420 out here on the West Coast in beautiful Portland, Oregon, right here at Rolla J Studios. We got a bong load ready to go with the official 420 radio bong. Hope you're enjoying yours too.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man.
When we come back, we got some more studies. The science behind marijuana on diabetes, and we got a couple of them. Stay tuned, we'll tell you all about it.
You know you're talking to that reefer man.
You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, home of the famous lighter leash. Herb Age Designs, get your Herb Age t-shirts and hoodies and show your pride. Herb Age Designs, we've got frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter. We'll see you at this year's Hemp Fest. Crank it up.
Music from Rosemary's Garden, that's Hard Times from our Daily Toker Tunes library. If you're interested in getting your band, your tune played on our Daily Toker Tunes segment and replayed infinitely forever, not infinitely replayed, I mean, there'll be other songs playing. You get my point. If it'll be put in our library right here at 420radio.org to be heard during our music hours and our top-ups, then just get on to 420radio.org, go to our contact form. You'll find a link for contact on the front page, or just go to 420radio.org/contact. Tell me about your group. Give me a link to the MP3s. We'll send it to our music editors, and we'll just see what happens. All right. So let us know. We're always looking for great new tunes, and they don't have to necessarily be about weed or weed smoking, although we prefer it. But if they're about freedom and rights, we're for that too. If they're for fighting oppression, we're for that too. Or if it's just a really stony song, send it in. We'd be glad to hear it. All right, getting back to the drinking and versus marijuana theme that we've been talking about. I saw a great comment. You know, Rio's been talking about his bar out there in the South and how there's less fights. And it reminds me of the bar in Olympia, Frankie's. Frankie's bar in Olympia, Washington, has an upper floor where they allow cigarette smoking, alcohol drinking, and marijuana toking. All on the same floor. No walls separating anybody. If you're 21 or over, have a smoke, have a toke, have a drink. It's all cool. And it was a little like a junior high lunchroom. Drinker sitting over there. Toker sitting over there. Kinda. But there was a lot of intermingling going on too. I saw a lot of marijuana smokers enjoying a nice beer or glass of wine. I myself had a shot of Southern Comfort. I saw a lot of the beer drinkers out of there passing a joint around. And I asked the bartender there, actually it was I think it was the co-manager or manager or something. And I asked him, I mean, what's it like having people here that, I grew up playing in bars. I grew up in bars. I have this bar mentality. I can tell who's going to fight. I can tell when it's going to get weird, who to watch for. It's like a sixth sense with me. And I didn't feel that at all in this bar. Normally when I go to a bar, I'm keeping my back to the entrance where I can see people. All right, where's the asshole at? There's always some asshole. Where is he at? Right? I didn't have that feeling at all. And I asked him, what's it like having, pot smoking in the bar? Because, it must be nice because the pot smokers are so mellow. And he said, yeah, but not only are the pot smokers mellower, the beer drinkers are mellower. It seems to have mellowed them out. And I'm like, because they're smoking pot? He's no, not even that they're not smoking pot. It's just having the pot smokers there just seems to make a more mellow vibe in the place. So, this is something that, this is the way we portray marijuana legalization. This is how we get beer drinkers on our side. What we need to do is, and I agree, there's nothing wrong. Well, I can't say there's nothing wrong. Here I am going against it. But, the Marijuana is Safer campaign, I think, has been a very good campaign. And I think it was very good for the time it was started. When it was started with, college kids were dying of binge drinking overdoses, and we wanted to show marijuana is safer. And back when people didn't think that, I think that was necessary. But now we're over 50% of people thinking that marijuana is safer. And another 25 or so percent that think they're about the same. Right? So if we got 3 out of 4 people who don't think marijuana is more harmful, why should we risk offending them? Right? I'm of the mind that we start to show how alike we are. The more we show this, oh, you've got the beer belly, we've got low calories. You're the wife beaters, we don't beat our wives. You're the alcoholics, we don't get addicted. Right? The more we do that, the more we divide, and the more divided we are, the easier we are to conquer. I say, let's make friends with the beer drinkers. Let's become their natural allies that we should be. Let's show that we are like them in that we like to get together, hang out, have fun, and we like to enjoy something that gives us a little buzz. And we like to share that buzz with each other, whether it's sharing a pitcher of beer or sharing a bowl that we pass around. Let's become their allies, and let's have them on our side, and let's have the culture of beer drinkers, especially the home brewers and the craft brewers. Oh my God. That is so in line with pot smoking. Anybody that knows those kind of people, you know what I'm talking about, right? Those craft brewers that get into every little pH and every little this. They're like pot growers that are into every little pH and every little, it's such a natural alliance. Let's make the message be about the injustice. Let's make the message be about the unfairness of the prohibition. Let's remind them that once upon a time, moral prudes, in the name of saving the children, once made their drug prohibited, and how terrible that was. We don't need to remind the beer drinkers about drunk driving and, wife beating and all that kind of, and calories and all that stuff. They know that stuff. They're like the cigarette smoker who's heard for the 1,000th time that cigarette smoking causes cancer from his well-meaning friends. They don't need to hear that again. And the more they hear it, the more it pisses them off from the person who's telling them that. Let's have them on our side and say, once upon a time, moral prudes in the name of the children were tried and successfully banned your drug. And we saw that it created Al Capone. We saw that it caused violence in the streets and bloodshed, and it didn't stop anybody who wanted to drink. And we're just like that right now, but 10 times worse. Show them that we have something in common in our oppression, that our prohibition is just as bad as their prohibition, that we are social animals that like to get together and get a buzz on just like they are, that we have a lot in common in this fight, and that they don't stand up for us, and if they don't stand up for us in our rights to use marijuana, the next time the moral police come after someone, they're going to start coming after the alcohol again. It's only a matter of time. Let's have them on our side. Let's stop fighting. Let's stop dividing. Let's work with the alcohol people. That's what I'm all for. All right. We're going to take a break because dry mouth happens. And it's the bottom of the hour. So when we come back, I've got 2 or 3 studies that I found here to end the week with on the effects of marijuana. And we'll talk about those. We're also live here. Oh, I haven't been putting up the call info. But we're at 971-533-7111. Stick around.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Have you considered medical marijuana? Double-blind, peer-reviewed studies have found cannabinoid therapies to be successful in treating the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, brain cancer, chronic pain, diabetes mellitus, dystonia, fibromyalgia, GI disorders, hepatitis C, HIV/AIDS, hypertension, incontinence, MRSA, multiple sclerosis, osteoporosis, pruritus, rheumatoid arthritis, sleep apnea, and Tourette's syndrome, as well as anecdotal evidence in suggesting relief from anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress, plus reduction in the need for narcotic painkillers. Side effects from medical marijuana can include euphoria, relaxation, anxiety, panic reaction, paranoia, tachycardia, dry eyes, dry mouth, concentration and reaction time impairments, appetite increase, and in some U.S. states, arrest and incarceration. But medical marijuana is non-toxic and cannot cause overdose. Medical marijuana, it's not for everyone, but ask your doctor if medical marijuana may be right for you.
The Russ Belville Show brings you the best in daily Toker tunes every weekday. Each day features a different genre, including Roots Monday,
Folks, here's a story about Minnie the Moocher,
Electric Tuesday, Irie Wednesday,
Summer ganja planter, call me the ganja farmer.
Groovin' Thursday,
Do you wanna get high?
and Rockin' Friday. Then on weekends, we mix them all together in our weekend music party.
Just give me my hemp paper. Build up a spliff, I light it up, I smell the vapor. Give me my hemp paper. You're the empress and you're the emperor.
Music from Hayasika. With AH's on the end, so you have to say Hayasika with Gimme My Hemp Paper. This is the come around rhythm. Kind of music you'll hear on the replays of the Red Eyes Reggae Flashback. If you weren't with us yesterday, we're pointing out how Brian the Red has left us here at 420 Radio. At least I'm going to say temporarily. He'll be back, but he had to take some time off, go make some money and all. So we'll be running replays starting with episode 1. Well, actually, it's going to be randomly selected, so I don't know which episode. But episodes 1 through 35 will be in the random rotations for Red Eyes Reggae Flashback. And that means that our Wednesday music editor position has opened up. If you are a fan of the reggae music or the reggae-ish music, you know, Revolution and The Green and that kind of stuff, then contact us here at 420 Radio, 420radio.org/contact. You can become our Wednesday music editor. You could call in just like Bacon Dan and Bago Schwago and Herb Thrasher. If you're interested, just let me know. It pays exactly $0. But if you're in town at any of our events, man, I'll get you a VIP wristband. I'll get you all access to whatever event. Like I say, working for 420radio.org, the pay sucks, but the fringe benefits kick ass. All right, so I wanted to get to some scientific studies that I found through mostly out at the Weed Blog today. Some great stuff that they have available at theweedblog.com. You should check that out. You should bookmark it. Do it. But let's see. I'll get to this first one here. Yeah, I got that story to talk about too. Okay, we'll come to that at the end of the show. At the Weed Blog, the story is cannabinoid produces beneficial metabolic effects in animal model of diabetes. And the story reads that the administration of the organic cannabinoid tetrahydrocannabivarin, which is THCV, is associated with positive metabolic effects that may potentially be beneficial to subjects with adult-onset diabetes, according to preclinical data published in the scientific journal Nutrition and Diabetes. Investigators at the University of Buckingham in England and the Institute for Biomolecular Chemistry in Italy assessed the effects of THCV administration on dietary-induced and genetically modified obese mice. Now, every time I read something like that, I realize that it's somebody's job out there to make obese mice. That's someone's gig, man. Making fat rats. All right. Authors reported that although THCV administration did not significantly affect food intake or body weight gain in either of the models, it did produce several metabolically beneficial effects, including improved glucose tolerance, improved liver triglyceride levels, and increased insulin sensitivity. Researchers concluded, quote, based on these data, it can be suggested that THCV may be useful for the treatment of the metabolic syndrome and or type 2 diabetes, or adult-onset diabetes, either alone or in combination with existing treatments. Given the reported benefits from another non-THC cannabinoid, CBD, in type 1 diabetes, a CBD THCV combination may be beneficial for different types of diabetes mellitus. Now, this is great news, and it's reported by Paul Armentano from Normal. And this is a question that's come up in our Dr. Mitch segment a few times about whether or not there'd be any information on diabetes and use of marijuana. The news we are getting this year sounds very positive. Sounds like we are going to get, a benefit from this. And also to combine this with the finding that marijuana smokers in general have a lower waist circumference, which generally translates to less adipose tissue, less fat, that we have a lower waist circumference and we have higher caloric intake than people that don't smoke pot. We're thinner even though we eat more, which to me tells me that I have to continue smoking marijuana until the day I die, because if I'm this pudgy with the pot, I don't know how big I'm going to get without the pot. We shall see. Now, another study that was also reported this is from the Weed Blog again. Cannabinoids found to reduce 90% of skin cancer in just 20 weeks. 5 months, 90% of skin cancer is gone. Here's how the story reads. A new study conducted by the Tokyo Metropolitan Institute of Public Health and published in the newest issue of the Journal of Pharmacy and Pharmacology has found that cannabinoids can reduce up to 90% of skin cancer in just a 20-week period. For the study, researchers used synthetic cannabinoids. Natural cannabis-derived cannabinoids are typically even more effective, but they used synthetic ones on mice with skin cancer in a 20-week study and found that the cannabinoids had a hugely positive effect, reducing skin cancer by up to 90%, as well as, quote, inhibiting tumor promotion, end quote. Researchers conclude, quote, this is the first report indicating the structure-activity relationships for the anti-inflammatory activity of synthetic cannabinoids on TPA-induced inflammation in mice. Naphthalinadols, or JWH-018, 122, and 210, synthetic cannabinoids, had the most potent anti-inflammatory activity and also markedly inhibited tumor promotion by TPA in the 2-stage mouse skin carcinogenesis model. The present results suggest that synthetic cannabinoids such as JWH-018, 122, and 210 may be used as cancer chemopreventative agents in the future. Wow. Now, if those names sound familiar to you, JWH-018 is one of the prime synthetic cannabinoids that is found in spice or K2, those fake pot, synthetic pot that they sell at the gas station or the head shop. 122 and 210 may also have been used. And these synthetic cannabinoids are typically, we were talking earlier about agonists, cannabinoid agonists and receptor agonists, how they trip a receptor. Okay. Now imagine the receptor and the molecule, right? And they to trip each other, there's this gap as to how far away the molecule and the receptor are. And I think it's called the activation gap or something like that. And it's a measure, in a sense, of how strong an agonist this is. How rapidly, how potently, how much it affects that particular receptor. And I'm greatly simplifying here. But, so, correct me for, forgive me for some of the inaccuracies. But this gap has to do with how much it triggers that particular receptor. Now, your natural cannabinoids, your endocannabinoids, like anandamide, or THC, CBD, and the other cannabinoids that we find in cannabis, typically have gaps in the double digits. 24, 25, whatever. I don't know the actual numbers. The agonists, these synthetic cannabinoids, the JWHs, the 018s, 122s, and 210s, can have gaps in the single digits, like 4 or 5. And what that means is that same receptor that would be tickled by THC is getting anally raped by JWH-018. I mean, forgive me. But that's kind of the idea, right? It's the difference in a huge difference in magnitude. And the reason why, the scientists that make these synthetic cannabinoids, these synthetic agonists, do that on purpose, because when you're trying to do these studies, you don't have years and years often to find out how tickling a receptor affects it over the long term. So you make this agonist that's much more potent, much more effective, that will give you the same results in a shorter time, that can show you what it was like. If you had tickled it for a year, this is what it's like if you do it for a week with the JWH-018. So this is very interesting to see how this will translate. Are they, if we find out that these synthetic cannabinoids are so effective against skin cancer, what is our government's reaction to that going to be? Continue to keep them illegal because some people might put them in spice or K2? It's this problem that prohibition creates that leads us away from some of the most promising discoveries that we make. Because some kids might do something bad with it, we got to let people continue to get skin cancer that could be easily treated. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you think about it that way, does it? All right. We're going to take ourselves a little break here. And when we come back, I'm looking over here at the new Rolla J Studios. And we've had some pretty high-tech updates to our flux capacitor. I think a story may be coming in, and perhaps a bonus rant. Oh my goodness, we're chock full today. Stay tuned.
The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
Yeah, I watch MTV all the time. They have the Rock Against Drug commercials, that whole campaign. These guys have, slid into fucking school buses and killed 20 children, yeah. Rather than a facial license, they made a public service announcement. Yeah, no shit. Yeah. I love these guys that is hello, listen, don't get caught with drugs or you'll have to do a commercial just like this one. I think I found the message. The message is don't get caught. Rock Against Drugs. What a fucking name. Somebody was high when they came up with this title. Yeah. It's like Christians Against Christ. Rock created drugs. What are they talking about? They go together, folks.
I wanna know if what you feel is real. 'Cause there is a reason, yeah, for the things that I say. I wanna love you, girl, in a special way.
Oh yeah, that's some classic funk for the Brothers Johnson. I'll be good to you, good to you, good to you. That's marijuana singing to you, folks. I think Tommy Chong said it best. Marijuana is the only drug that'll let you leave it alone. Hey, pot. I don't want to smoke you no more, man. I got to get a job. Yeah, that's cool. I'll be over here. Whenever you get back, I'll be cool. Cocaine won't do that. That's for damn sure. All right, let's check over here. Flux capacitor's warming up. I think we've got a call from the 1920s.
Stupid prohibition stories. As a public service, the Russ Belville Show reminds you that smoking marijuana does not make one stupid. However, some stupid people do smoke marijuana, and prohibition is always waiting for another victim. Learn your lesson from today's Stupid Prohibition Stories.
With your Stupid Prohibition Stories, I'm old-timey 1920s radio reporter Freddie Farrakh. This just in from clickorlando.com. Lake Mary teacher had cocaine in bra, marijuana in purse, deputies say. A Lake Mary elementary school teacher is facing a slew of charges after Seminole County deputies say they found cocaine, marijuana, and amphetamines in her purse, as well as a vial of cocaine in her bra. Kimberlyn Witt, age 48, who teaches 3rd grade at Lake Mary Elementary, was arrested around 10:30 p.m. Tuesday. 2 deputies were standing near a bus station in Fern Park when they said they spotted an SUV driving by. The windows were rolled down, and officers said they immediately smelled marijuana coming from the vehicle. Investigators say Martin Dennis, age 61, was driving the SUV.
He was not a school district employee, but deputies say they spotted him blowing a cloud of marijuana smoke out the vehicle before he pulled over. Seminole County School District officials said Witt has worked for the district for nearly 22 years. She was first hired in September 1991, and according to district officials, had no issues in her personal life. I'm Freddie Farrock with your stupid Prohibition story. Well, that story's just a damn shame, isn't it? I mean, worked there since 1991, third grade teacher, no issues in her personal life and her past, nothing to suggest that she's a bad teacher in any way. But she has to do the stupid thing of smoking pot in the moving car with the open windows where the cops can smell it. How many times do we have to tell you? Smoking pot in your car is just asking to get busted. Now, I'm throwing rocks from a glass house because I've done it. I know. And every time I've done it, I thought, is this going to be the time? I sure hope not. And it's something I'm working hard not to do anymore. It's a stupid risk I don't need to take, and it's a stupid risk none of us need to take. If, at least, for God's sake, if you're going to do it, roll up the windows. I mean, Jesus. Oh, it's such a shame. And so here, her 20-year teaching career is done. It's over. She's never going to be allowed around kids again. She's probably a wonderful woman, loves to teach the kids, but not now. I mean, that's hopeless for her. And the cocaine and the amphetamines, that's something else entirely. That's, wow, got that too. Again, not demonizing. Didn't look like the cocaine or the amphetamines was causing any problems for her at work. Seemed like that she was doing a good job. But when people read this story, when they hear about this in the mainstream, just the fact that she used those drugs makes her a bad human being that's dangerous to be around kids in their minds. And that's a shame. That's a shame. Because if she'd gotten a DUI, she wouldn't necessarily have her teaching career ruined. I've known of teachers who've gotten DUIs and are still teaching. So we know it's not that. And I just hope that, something good turns out for her. I don't have, I have much advice for the lady, other than, roll up the windows, leave the drugs at home, I guess. I don't know what else to tell her. All right.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant. That's right, folks. Get a little bonus rant today. And today I was just reading about the state of Arizona. And that's not going to work, is it? All right, let's just go back to the no green screen. We'll fix that this weekend. But go back to the state of Arizona here. I saw a story come up in one of the Phoenix papers. It was the Arizona, azfamily.com brought this up. And it's the story of how yet another medical marijuana patient has been victimized by a home invasion. But now he's going to be victimized a second time because of the 25-mile halo rule. I'll just read to you from my post today on this. A medical marijuana patient in Phoenix, Arizona has been victimized by a home invasion robbery. Now he faces a second victimization at the hands of the justice system. The homeowner, who holds a medical marijuana card, was awakened just after midnight to a 32-year-old man breaking into his back door. When the intruder kicked in the homeowner's bedroom door, the homeowner responded by shooting the intruder several times, including once in the face. The intruder's in the hospital and expected to recover, but the homeowner has only begun to face the fallout from defending himself. Immediately after the shooting, the homeowner called police. When they arrived, they found over 20 mature marijuana plants and 25 clones. Now, the most plants an Arizona medical marijuana patient can be allowed to grow is 12. However, this homeowner would be facing felony marijuana cultivation charges even if he had fewer than a dozen plants, as his home is just 7 miles away from the Giving Tree Wellness Center, a medical marijuana dispensary. Cultivating any marijuana plants, even as a legal medical marijuana patient, is illegal if you live within 25 miles of any dispensary. This is the so-called 25-mile halo rule that's been written into Arizona's medical marijuana law. In addition to the felony cultivation charge, there are bound to be charges related to this homeowner exercising his Second Amendment rights. As a 2011 piece in the Phoenix New Times points out, quote, any person who uses or is addicted to marijuana, regardless of whether his or her state has passed authorizing marijuana use for medicinal purposes, is an unlawful user, end quote, and cannot own or buy firearms, according to Arthur Herbert of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Now, opponents of medical marijuana fight against home growing, and they are winning. The last 8 states to pass medical marijuana laws have forbidden or extremely limited home grows for medical marijuana patients. They point to home invasions like this one to support their stand, as if people who own diamonds, fine art, or jewelry should be forbidden from keeping such enticements from home invaders too. Then they point to a homeowner defending his castle, based on his cherished constitutional rights, as an example of the violence inherent in marijuana production. The only way to eliminate the violence inherent in marijuana production is to fully legalize it and bring its value down to that of any other reasonably priced flower crop. Nobody's busting in anyone's home late at night to rob them of their Victory Garden zucchini. To prosecute a patient who is treating himself, and sure, perhaps others, with a non-toxic herb after he's already faced down terror and violence in his own home is simply unjust and cruel. And I've put that rant up on the blog at radicalruss.com. If you want to get a copy of that and pass that through your Facebook and social networks. And while they allege he had 20 plants, 20 mature, 25 seedlings, and of course, even if he was outside of the halo, he would still be busted. So maybe it's unfair to say he's a victim of the 25-mile halo. But I would posit that in the prosecution, if he's got too many plants, a good defense attorney would say, well, Your Honor, he's allowed to grow plants. He just had too many of them. But that defense won't be available because he lived within 25 miles of a dispensary. And I just fear this continued push against allowing home grow in the medical marijuana states, 8 in a row now. And looking at Illinois and New York as possibly being 9 and 10 that don't allow home grow, that we are setting ourselves up, at least in these states that have the no home grow, to have them all replaced with cannabinoid pharmaceuticals someday. We have got to get the recognition of the right, our hemp heritage, the right that our founding fathers had to cultivate this plant. It makes no sense whatsoever, and it just needs to change. So that's why we're here. We'll keep doing this day after day, every weekday here at the Russ Belville Show at 420 Radio. Not from Rollatide. I got so many graphics to fix down. Thanks for supporting us, and if you want to become a supporter of 24-hour live and replay cannabis community radio, talk radio to educate so we can regulate, just log on to 420radio.org, click on Donate to Support, and set up your monthly membership today. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. Coming up next, Big Daddy Fink, A Night with Elvis, coming up on the Funky Roller Rink. And until next time, take care of each other, Tokers. I'll see you in Minneapolis this weekend.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it,